What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Joe's Tavern, located at the intersection of sports and pop culture. Belly up to the bar, have a drink, and join us in the conversation. Socials, X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. I call it Twitter because screw Elon. At Joe's Tavern Show. Any questions, comments, JoesTavernShow at gmail.com. On YouTube, youtube.com at Joe's Tavern Show, blah, blah, blah. Like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. I enjoy doing this. I welcome your feedback. More people to watch, the more this gets out there to more people, and I think it's a entertaining product. At least I think so. So, before we get into our guest, who I'm super stoked to have, quick news and notes about local sports here. Reds are in the midst of spring training. Games have been going on for a couple weeks now. Just a heads up on injuries. Spencer Steer is still nursing his shoulder injury. Is day to day. We're all day to day, but I'm not sure if he's going to be able to be ready to start opening day on time. If he's not, the Reds have a problem because they have a terrible outfield with him and are abysmal without him, but we'll see what happens on that. Top prospect Cam Collier is out 4 to 6 weeks with a UCL tear in his thumb. He probably won't miss much time. He'll probably start the season in Chattanooga. He'll be ready probably late April, so he's not going to be too far behind there. He hopefully doesn't cause too much of a hassle and he's able to get back into full strength May, June, and hopefully progress quickly. It'd be nice to have him knocking down the doors to Cincinnati here shortly. Andrew Abbott through live batting practice. He's got shoulder fatigue. He'll throw at least one more live BP before getting cleared for Cactus League games, so expect that within the next week or so. Rhett Lauder is still working his way back from his shoulder fatigue, elbow fatigue, not throwing batting practice. He won't be ready for opening day, but he was likely to start in Louisville anyway. Hopefully he can work his way back as soon as possible, because again, he's got a wealth of talent, and I think he's one of the 5 best starters in the Reds organization, so I'd love to see him up sooner than later. So outside of that, everyone else is relatively healthy as can be. Chase Burns got on the mound for the first time, looked fantastic, hit 101, 102 miles an hour. Slider is absolutely disgusting. I cannot wait for that to grace the mound at Great American Ballpark. Chase Petty got a live look against major leaguers, and he looked sharp as well. I think he's got a little bit behind these guys. He's just not as sharp with his stuff, but again, he's got high 90s, low, can hit 100 on the gun, and again with another knockout killer slider. So fun to see those guys going. Onwards to the Bengals, and we'll have a lot more conversation about this shortly. But Trey Hendrickson is, as of now, still a Bengal. Remains to be seen what they plan to do with him. I have heard rumblings from inside. I'm not going to say anything, but I've heard of what things that may be going on. Not best if you're a Trey Hendrickson fan of the Bengals, but we'll leave it at that. T. Higgins and Jamar Chase are both in town. Neither are signed. Myles Garrett just signed a contract that's paying him $40 million a year with the Browns, which means that Jamar Chase is going to make more than that because the Bengals wait and wait and wait. And Duke said he's going to be the highest paid non-quarterback in the league. So the more they wait, the more money they have, because Micah Parsons is waiting for his contract, and he most surely will make more money than Myles Garrett because he's younger. So such is the life of Cincinnati sports fans. Quick news about local hardware. UC Bearcats regular season ended yesterday with another loss. Big 12 tournament starts on Tuesday. They play Oklahoma State again, who they just lost to yesterday. Their only chance to make the NCAA tournament is to run the table, and with the horses in front of them, that's not happening. I mean, Iowa State, Houston, they're if they beat Oklahoma State, I'd be surprised, and I don't think they're even going to play in the NIT if they don't make the NCAA. I think they'd turn down an invite to the NIT. They need to just get the season over with and then move forward with the offseason and retaining guys who they want to retain and get into the figuring out what the roster is going to look like going into 25-26. Crosstown, Xavier, Big East tournaments for them starts on Wednesday. Their first game is Thursday, I think at 2:30 against Marquette. Marquette is Xavier is higher seed than them in the tournament or in Big East standings, but Marquette is listed as a lock for the tournament. I think Xavier needs to beat Marquette to be able to secure a bid to the NCAA tournament. Next game after that would be St. John's, and I don't foresee them beating St. John's, but I think if they win on Wednesday or on Thursday, they'll be sitting pretty on Sunday afternoon as the bids come out. If they don't, it's going to be an uneasy next 48 hours. So we shall see. Anyway, onwards to our guest. I am super happy to have Paul Hirons, the host of Who Dey UK, writer, all-around good guy, Bengals International Fan of the Year. And you even get an awesome introduction graphic, too. You didn't know you had that.
that.
Paul, how are you, sir?
Yeah, good. Thanks for having me, Joe. It's great to see you again.
Always a pleasure. It's fun. Got to meet him in November in town for what game was that?
It was the Eagles game.
That's right. That didn't turn out so well.
Right. No, it wasn't. But and a lot of people kind of said that to us. 20-odd British Bengals fans over from the UK. Our third annual trip, consecutive annual trip. We're hoping to come back again this autumn as well. A lot of people said, "Oh man, I'm sorry about the results. Sorry they played terrible." And it's like, it's kind of just being there. It really didn't matter as much, I would say. We were seeing a game between two decent teams, one that obviously went on to win it all. And you could kind of tell they were a serious outfit when they played us that day, But no, it was just great to be there. So I mean, not saying that we like losing, but it was like, okay, disappointed that we lost, but we're in Cincinnati. How cool is that, So yeah, it was a pleasure to be there again.
And then that's the thing. I mean, not that wins and losses are ancillary at that point, but again, like you're there for the visit, for the experience of being back. Not that it's your first time ever being in Cincinnati or being to a Bengals game, but I mean, it's a long trip. It's not exactly like it's a short bus ride to get into town and everything. So, let me ask you, what are your thoughts on the city of Cincinnati? I don't know how much traveling you've done in and around the United States outside of our lovely hamlet, but what are your thoughts on Cincinnati as it's as an area, as a scene?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I'm lucky, really. I've been to a few cities. I've been down to Florida, been to Chicago, been to Vegas, been to LA. So I've been to a few in my time, and it's up there. It feels now. I mean, frankly, it feels like home now. Frankly, and I've got to know the city much better, and I like it. I like exploring and walking and checking things out and saying hello to people and going into bars and all the. Do you know what I mean? I like doing that. And Cincinnati downtown, at least, is a very walkable area. But I'm wearing my represent Spun Cycle T-shirt here from Northside. I went to Northside a couple of years ago, and I wanted to check that out because I'm a big live music fan, and heard it was kind of quite an arty, kind of bohemian-y place, and I kind of quite like those places. So it was great to experience that. So yeah, Cincinnati is great. I always try and temper it though, because we're obviously there on vacation, really, and we're staying downtown. We're not in the suburbs. We don't live in Clifton or Northside or Covington or over the river there or Newport or wherever. We're living in for several days at least, or for me it's a whole week. We're living in a fancy hotel downtown. Everything is taken care of. So it's difficult to kind of for a lot of people on our trip to give you that answer. But certainly they love it. They feel though it's a life-changing experience, genuinely. The welcome that we get from the locals is genuinely fantastic, like extraordinarily friendly and welcoming. We've had every year we've been, and I know I'm going to jinx it by saying this now, every year that we've been, we've had unseasonably warm weather for kind of end of October, early November, like crazily warm weather. Like I got sunburned the first year that I was there at the end of like first week of October. What is all that about? I like, I really, really genuinely like it. It feels you've got the riverside there. You've got some great bars there. I really like OTR. I like the breweries there. I love Northern Row, and I especially love Rheingeist and what's going on around, on those streets around those breweries. I think they do a really nice job. It feels it genuinely, it's a really good city, I think. And from what I understand, year on year, new things keep opening, new initiatives are starting to happen to make it more even better. And when I say better, I don't mean it's not stuff for tourists, or it's stuff for the locals as well. Stuff the civic pride. It's stuff for locals to feel invested in their city. And I really like it. I'd go back every year if I could. And as long as I'm doing this, kind of leading on Bengals UK, then I'll try and come back every year, really. But yeah, everyone forget about me. I've been there a few times now. I'm lucky to have been to the city 4 or 5 times, so I feel as though I know it a little bit now. But for the guys who've been there for the first time, that's who you need to ask, because they're kind of like a virgin touched for the very first time, so they can answer. And every person will tell you genuinely that they've really enjoyed themselves, and that's because of the city, and it's because of the people, really.
I always appreciate hearing that. And again, even if someone doesn't appreciate their time, it's just interesting to hear as an outsider what people think. Because I think I don't want to say jaded is the right word, but we have our ingrown, our innate thoughts of what the city is, or we love this area, we hate this area, or a lot of people, especially when you're younger, you think people in their teens and 20s especially think Cincinnati's just a lame city. It's not a city to to go clubbing. It's not like Atlanta or Vegas or Los Angeles. What it's good there are so many cool bars to hang out. If you love beer, there are a few better cities with the amount of microbreweries. And I mean, Rheingeist I can't even consider Rheingeist a microbrewery. The place is huge.
No, you're right. Absolutely. Yeah.
And luckily, there's more distilleries. I'm not a beer drinker, but they're getting more and more small distilleries, which I'm all about that. Give me my bourbon and and rum, and we're ready to roll.
I'm on the rum tonight. I'm on Kraken black spiced rum with a dark caramel with Cornish sea salt, and it's not like drinking. It's not like drinking an alcoholic beverage. It's slipping down far too easily, to be honest with you. So I apologise in advance if I start to slur in a little while. But I mean,
I encourage it.
It was interesting that you said that, Joe, because the guy that I do our podcast Cincinnati with, Nathan, is 15 years younger than me, I think, and so he's got a different checklist of what he wants from a city, what he likes doing, and he's still just about, he'll laugh at this, but he's still just about an age where he loves going clubbing and all night kind of dancing in, not like sort of techno or drum and bass or anything, but like kind of cheesy rubbish clubs, to be honest with you. But he likes drinking all night, and he can do that. I can't do that anymore, frankly. But I'll give it a bash for a good couple of hours and see how we get on. So I kind of said, be interested to see what you think of Cincinnati, because it's not, obviously you've got the banks and then you've got some bars. I'd be interested to know what you think. It's not like the big glitzy glamour of New York or wherever, like a big city. It's not it doesn't have loads and loads of clubs or whatever. So and he loved it. He absolutely loved it. He said, it's just a really nice, friendly atmosphere around it. The bars in OTR are fantastic. He enjoyed it. No, there's honest, like you said, we're not from there. So everything is new and shiny and different and exciting because we're in Cincinnati because of the Bengals, and we live 5,000 miles away, and everything's great. But for you guys, like you say, you have you live there every day. The politics. The people that you don't like. Like us over here in our towns, and you know what I mean. So you always sort of tend to neglect the things on your doorstep a little bit, and Cincinnati's great. Cincinnati's really great.
Next time you come, I got to have you come up towards, I live in the northeast part of the area. there is. Are you a fan of the movie The Shining?
Yeah, I enjoy The Shining. Yeah.
There is a bar that's themed after. It's called the Overlook Lodge, and just the best cocktails I think I've ever had. And it's like 10 minutes away from my house, which is great. But
the first year properly that I came in 2017, and me and a friend. So my friend Jim and his wife Yumi live in Tokyo, and I know him because he grew up around here. Like we've known each other for 20 odd years, actually longer than that. But he moved to Tokyo, met Yumi, got married, and now have a little girl called Nico. And so they were coming from. It was his 40th birthday, so for a treat, they wanted to come to Cincinnati, or he wanted to come to Cincinnati. Not sure if Yumi did, but although she's a keen tennis fan, so she was interested to see what the city who hosts that big tennis tournament is like. But they came in the middle of winter. And we went to see the Bears game in 2017 when we weren't very good that year, and they were marginally better than us, and they beat us and it was frigid cold, and it was just an awful game to watch. But anyway, we did find this bar in Walnut Hills that I don't know if it's still there or not. Maybe some of your listeners or viewers can help me out with this. But you walked in, it was like a video store. And like they had videos on, like, VHS videos on shelves, and it was just like being in a local video store from the 80s or 90s. So I was down with that because I'm an 80s kid, and you had to answer some questions. Like the person behind the till asks you some questions about kind of like movie questions, and if you got them right, she would open this secret door, and you would walk through, and it would be it's like this themed bar. And it was brilliant. And like you say, the cocktails are absolutely lethal, but also very lovely. So that was a great experience. And I'm all for little quirky things like that. I'm all over that sort of stuff. So.
I think that was the video archive? I think it's closed now.
Yeah, it was great though. It was really great. What a novel idea. It was a front. It was almost like a speakeasy, but in an 1980s version of a speakeasy where you'd have the videos and the VHS, and then you'd walk through into this bar. I think the film, if I remember correctly, it was a Tim Burton because it was near to Christmas. So it was the Tim Burton Christmas movie that was
Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yeah, so it was all themed, like all kind of decorated with cobwebs and those kind of puppets that were in the movie, those kind of things going on, and there was TVs showing the film, and it was it was really fun, But I'd heard before they did. I think they'd done it out into a Pulp Fiction themed bar in the summer before we went. But yeah, no, that was great. So I'm all over that kind of stuff.
It's actually, and just looking it up while you're talking. It's closed, but yeah, it's the video archive, and it's run by the same people that run the bar that I was speaking about.
Great.
So they have several. They've had several really cool themes. They had I'm not sure if it's still open, a 16-bit bar and arcade, so they had all these video games and everything set up. That was down in OTR. So anyway, now I need a drink now, and we talked earlier. It's not quite 3:30 here, and I've got my cappuccino. I think I need to put some Baileys or something in it. Talking all this. So what made you someone from you're London area, correct?
No. I'm
oh, okay.
I am around 100 miles north of London, slightly west of London, in an area called the Midlands, and you can probably guess where that abouts is in the country. Slap bang in the middle, in a county called Warwickshire. So yeah, it's pretty historic. It's pretty leafy. It's nice. It's it's my home county. So there's a city called Birmingham, which is England's second city in terms of size and population, about 25 miles or so just up the road there. There's a city called Coventry, even closer. It's 10 miles away. And there's a city called Leicester, kind of northeast of us, about 35 miles away. And I only mentioned Leicester because a couple of Bengals fans that I know really well are Leicester City fans, you know. So, I grew up here, and then after university, I moved to London and stayed there like 25 years. And then COVID, I was kind of weird, actually. Weird. I say celebrating, that's utterly the wrong word, but marking the 5th anniversary of COVID today in the UK. You know, we had 2 lockdowns in 2020, and towards the end, I realised I couldn't afford to live in London anymore. So I decided to move back up here, and I've been up here ever since. I still go down to London to work like every week, not every day, but every week, a couple of times a week. I still have loads of friends down there. I sing in a band, so you know there's that going on. So London is pretty, you know, a huge part of my life. But certainly, I grew up here in the Midlands, and yeah, as I say, I was an 80s kid, so that's when I first became aware of the NFL. Really, it was 1985. So I think TV coverage of the NFL started in about 83 over here, and we had at that time just 4 channels, right? So the BBC, the 2 BBC channels and 2 commercial channels, and one of those commercial channels, Channel 4, started showing weekly highlights of these NFL games. So kind of everyone knew about them. I was really into soccer. I was pretty, you know, I played to a very high standard, and I was really into soccer. And then I started my high school in AE5. And around that time, if you remember, the Bears were the Super Bowl winners that year. And it was William the Refrigerator Perry, who was one of the stars. And for some, I still don't know to this day why, but the British newspapers picked up on the fridge, and he became an overnight sensation over here. He was like in the front pages of the tabloid newspapers, not because he'd done anything ridiculous or controversial, just because he was a fun big guy called the fridge. How weird is that, you know? And so that really boosted the sports kind of profile over here. And then in that year, I think it was that year, pretty sure it was that year, I started a new secondary school and fell in, you know, when you start a new school, you kind of meet new pals, really. And on our school fields during break time, they were kind of throwing a ball around that looked like a rugby ball as far as I was concerned, but it wasn't. And they were just like running, and they were throwing it to each other. And I thought, I like a run around, and so started playing with them. And we started playing, not seriously, but kind of started having little scrimmages. And they were all like, because I went to a very progressive school, shall we say? So we were allowed to wear regular clothes each day. We didn't wear a school uniform, which I would say almost 100% of schools over here do require their kids to wear school uniforms. We didn't. We used to call our teachers by their first name. If you reach 16, you were allowed to smoke in a certain corner of there was a smoker's corner. There was an emphasis on art and language and all the rest of it. And a lot of people kind of said, how did that work in terms of discipline? And it kind of did, because we had a headmaster called Peter Hastings, who was like a Darth Vader character, and you were absolutely terrified of him. So you could get away with a lot of stuff, but if he found out, it was deep, deep trouble. But anyway, I'm digressing madly here. So I'm on the school field with my new pals, and we're chucking the ball around, and we're having a laugh. And I thought, yeah, this is great, you know. But they were all like, you have to remember, this was the era of Dan Marino Joe Montana. The Raiders was still pretty big at that time, like Marcus Allen, all those sort of guys, you know. The 49ers, as I mentioned. So those the guys that I began to get to know all really liked those teams. And I thought, no, I've got to get my own team here. So I started watching the weekly highlights. And it was about 86, I would say now. And I saw this blonde-haired, I've told this story quite a lot, so forgive me if anyone's heard it. This blonde-haired quarterback chucking it all over the place, you know, seemingly giving the ball to a running back and then not giving the ball to a running back. I didn't know what that was called. It looked like magic to me. And then throwing it about 1,000,000 yards downfield. And, you know, I thought, oh, he looks good. They look like fun. They've got tiger stripes on their helmets. And it's from a place called Cincinnati. I've only ever heard of Cincinnati from that kind of sitcom that I can't remember the letters to. Do you know what I mean? It's like
WKRP.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So it was a combination of things, really. So I proudly announced that I am now a supporter of the Cincinnati Bengals, and sort of everyone laughed at me, to be honest with you. And then they didn't laugh at me because we got to the Super Bowl a couple of years later. So it was jog on. And then the 90s happened, and then they continued. They got back to laughing at me. So that's the kind of the origin story, really. My fandom. I don't know. I just really connected with the sport and the team, and yeah, it was in '89. It was weird. I went on a soccer trip to America. There was like an exchange trip, and it was I want to say spring '89. And we played. It was a fantastic experience. We played in Florida, so we stayed with a family. Every player of our squad got kind of like put with a family in this town. No, we stayed in a hotel in Florida near Orlando, and then we went up to Atlanta. That's where for the next week. So he's played a bunch of tour games and exhibition games and whatnot, and we actually played like the American Olympic team, like the under 16s or whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was fantastic, and we actually had to. I can't remember if it was coming in or whether it was on the way back. We had to change at Cincinnati, so you can imagine my excitement of actually. You know, so for about 2 hours, I was at Cincinnati Airport, CVG, obviously, and I remember there was still loads of Super Bowl gear in the shops, in the stores there, and it was just fun to be there. But I didn't get to see any of the city, obviously. But so yeah, that's the origins of my fandom, I guess you'd say.
It's interesting because I was just spoke with David Fulcher yesterday. There was a sports card show, and we were there, like, Jeff Strawberry Ice did a show with him, and we were literally sitting right next to Dave. And he's been on the show before. I've talked to him a couple of times and met him before. But it was interesting talking to him just like person to person, having a conversation with someone. Yeah, he's in his early 60s. He's still a very large, imposing individual. Like, I'm not a small guy. I'm 6'1", 230 some odd pounds, and seeing someone who, 30 years after his playing career ended is still in much better shape and hulks over you. You're like, football players are a different breed.
Mate, I want to say Fulcher was one of my holy trinity. So it was Boomer, James Brooks, and David Fulcher. They were my heroes. So we managed to get Fulcher on to the podcast. So that was, our podcast. That was a big deal 3 or 4 years ago. That was a big deal. And of course, if you go down to Bengal gyms, every Sunday, he's got his little kind of card stall there, and he's just the friendliest, loveliest guy. And I'm like, when I see him now, I give him a hug. I give David Fulcher a hug. Now, I am not a big guy, as you know. I'm about 5'7". So he's towering over me like I feel like a child next to him. But yeah, I luckily enough, I went to, there's a lot of talk about Sam Hubbard, quite rightly at the moment. People paying their respects to him and his amazing career and wishing him well and thanking him for all the kind of amazing 7-year career he's had in Cincinnati. I saw him last year because when I come to Cincinnati, I'm lucky enough to get a bit of access to in the media room at Cincinnati. I try and get as much as I can out of that trip as possible. And bless them, the Bengals are fantastic with me. Sam Hubbard walked past, and I am not kidding. He is enormous. He's like, he's as wide as he is tall, and he's obviously ridiculously handsome. I hated him instantly, obviously, but
feeling immediately inadequate.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but you're right. Once you see these guys up close, it's like, goodness me, can you imagine those guys running at you like 20 miles an hour, and you've got to stop them? Whew, I don't know.
No,
I'm quite much happier on the sidelines, I think, watching that.
So, let me ask, what is your best Bengals fan moment in person of the games that you've attended?
Oh, goodness me, there's a question. I find it really difficult to. I mean, yeah, I don't know. Like people, there was a guy. I'd heard. I was at Bengal gyms because we do a lot of stuff at Bengal gyms when we get there. Sort of, he looks after us and sorts us out with beer, and we get a little wristband, and the guys get to have beer and food and whatnot.
Sure.
There was a guy that came up to me and said, I've been waiting to meet you. I listen to every episode of your podcast. I've got to say, it's like the best podcast out there, blah, blah, blah. And you're just standing there going, wow. I mean, there is literally 36 or 37 Bengals podcasts out there, and you're listening to ours, which is not even like from Cincinnati. So, it's little things like that, really. It's just the connections. I think that's the key. It sounds really cliched, but it's connecting with people that, that I never ever dreamt of connect. I'm in Fulcher, for God's sake. And I met Willie Anderson at Bengal gyms, and Icky Woods is always knocking around, and and then you meet Corey Dillon up at the bomb squad, and it's Jeff's up there being a dickhead, and kind of everyone's up there being dickhead. And everyone's having a great time. What I mean by dickhead is having a great time and making
sure, absolutely.
I'm not saying that Jeff is a dickhead.
I mean, he is, but he's a good friend of mine, so I can say that.
I mean, in a very adorable sort of way. Anyway, am I just digging myself into a hole now? No,
he's cheeky.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He's one of the best, actually. He's really great.
Yeah.
So just to kind of connect with people. So then the next year, people literally, and you'll talk to a lot of guys that who go there and go the next year. They will have made friends, and they will have organised to meet up with those people that they met the previous year, and so on and so forth. So I love that. I really, really love that, because I think that's what a fan community should be. Don't know, personally speaking, sometimes I'm on such kind of, this makes sense, Bengals UK duty. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm enjoying the shit out of it.
Sure.
I'm enjoying every moment of being in Cincinnati. I'm enjoying going to the games. I'm enjoying hanging out with a bunch of people that I consider friends. But I've also got one eye on making sure they're okay and whether they're having a good time, and if there's any problems or whatever, so that's fine. But every now and again, I'll just sit there and have a little quiet moment and think, oh, I'm in Cincinnati. So it's still just being there is such a kind of a weird, surreal thing to me. I never thought it would be possible. Honestly, I never thought it would be possible, but it is, and it has, and it hopefully will continue to be. But yeah, just seeing Burrows, just seeing your favourite players live, and just seeing the game, and the atmosphere beforehand and afterwards, and it's rarefied goodness. I love it. It's brilliant.
Did you ever get a chance to catch a game at Riverfront or Synergy Field, the previous stadium?
Would have loved to. As I say, when I was a kid and we flew into Cincinnati, I kind of excitedly took photographs of Riverfront from about 15,000 feet or whatever. But no, I didn't. I know it was from what I read, and it wasn't like the best stadium in the world, but it was kind of home, really, wasn't it? It had so many iconic moments. As I fell in love with that team of the 80s: Boomer, Brooks, Fulcher, Munoz, Eddie Brown, Tim McGee, Rodney Holman, Reggie Williams, who we had on our podcast a couple of weeks ago.
He's an amazing guy. He's an amazing guy.
Yeah, he's an amazing guy. Solomon Wilcots, Eric Thomas, you know, amazing, really. What a team. What a team. But the real hero for me was Sam White. You know, he was, I don't know why, he was just incredibly special. Managed to get him on the podcast before he passed away, which was a dream come true. And this year is like the 5-year anniversary of him passing away. So
yeah.
You know, just seeing Riverfront, and I don't know, it's a long time ago, and it just adds to the bond with the city. You know, I think, like you say, if you're really into a sports team, you want to find out more about the city, and then if you're lucky enough to get a chance to go there, then you start to make friends and meet people and have fun in the city. So it becomes a much more kind of holistic 360 experience than just the sports. And frankly, thank fuck, because, you know, the Bengals are an up and down team, let's face it.
Yeah.
I don't need to tell anyone that. I saw Riverfront. I've been to, I'm not, don't throw me off the podcast, Joe, but I'm not a huge baseball fan, so
that hurts my heart, because baseball is my number one passion. I'm just saying, but we'll keep rolling, we'll keep going.
I'd keep trying with it. I don't, and I love cricket over here, which is the obvious British equivalent to baseball, but I just can't. It's
a weird sport to get into.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I can see it. I can see the appeal. I can see it, but I just can't. I'm really thrilled to see the city embrace FC Cincinnati, and a lot of our guys over here have been really following FC Cincinnati and kind of really enjoying their progress and development. Like, it's 10 years, I think, isn't it? And we were lucky enough to go to TQL last year. We managed to kind of, we managed, they were in the playoffs, so their season was extended a little bit, and we were just about there. We managed to get to see a game at TQL, which was a terrific experience as well. So, yeah.
It's funny because when I grew up here in Cincinnati, I went to Riverfront dozens of times, probably 100 times in my life, for baseball. I never once saw a Bengals game at Riverfront. It was, football tickets are a lot more expensive. We were lower middle class, and obviously that's a luxury to being able to go to a Bengals game. But I went to the very first ever Bengals game at formerly Paul Brown Stadium, like the preseason game against the Bears in August of 2000. So made sure to get off on the right foot there with the new stadium. But
yeah,
it was.
No, I was just going to say it's a really interesting point that you make about the prices. I sometimes marvel at how people can afford to go every week to and even though the Bengals are kind of pretty still lower down on the affordability, in the affordability league, I guess, if you want to call it that, it's still pretty expensive. Mind you, I guess it's only, but kind of 8 games. That's like $1,000 a year, though, surely.
More than that. I had 2 season tickets at University of Cincinnati for their football, and they play 6 games, and it was $1,400 for 2 seats just for college football, and not in UC isn't is by no means a hot ticket of one of the bigger schools like Ohio State or Alabama. Bengals. I'll be honest, I have no idea. I think the tickets probably start for probably $120 a game or something like that. So even the top, the nosebleed seats as they were, you're probably talking $1,500.
Yeah, it's not cheap, that's for sure.
All right, done with all the happy moments. Let's talk about some depressing moments. What are your thoughts? And again, the offseason has yet to really start. It starts in earnest here in about 20 hours. noon local time, noon Eastern time here, when free agency tampering period begins. What are your thoughts on what has happened so far with Trey, Jamar? They were able to re-sign Mike Gesicki, which is I think a really strong move. But overall thoughts on what's on the state of the Bengals right now?
I'm old enough and ugly enough, Joe, to kind of know that, it's not. There's a lot. Trouble is with social media, right? There's a lot of performative angst, right?
Sure.
There's a lot of teeth gnashing and wailing and, oh my God, the Bengals are terrible. And there's no doubt that they're pretty rubbish in certain areas. There's no denying that, and I'm certainly not going to stick up for them for that. That's for sure. But I know I prefer to wait and see how it kind of shakes out a little bit. Ask me again in a couple of weeks, I think. However, at this very moment, the optics do not look good at all. They are getting an absolute hammering nationally, if you care about that sort of stuff. They are getting a hammering from a lot of fans out there, which is never good. The other thing is we don't know what's going on behind closed doors. We don't know how close deals are. I'd have thought, frankly, the T deal would have got done today. But what is it now? What is it to your time? Coming up to
4 o'clock almost.
4 o'clock. Still no news about that. Still no news about Jamar. The Trey Hendrickson one is the most interesting, I think. I go but either way up almost day to day. I kind of yes, we must keep him. No, look, let's just cash in on him now, because it feels kind of odd, doesn't it? Really, he should have been Defensive Player of the Year in my opinion. He was the NFL sack leader, that's never it might have happened if Coy Bacon was acknowledged for his sacks in '76, sure. But certainly in the modern era, it's not very often a Cincinnati Bengal gets an NFL sack. So my point is, he's like in the top 3 of the NFL for that particular role as a pass rusher, I would say. Sure. I think that's fair to say. So it feels like completely stupid to allow him to seek a trade and not tie him down to a big deal, right? The Max Crosby thing came out and we've just got Myles Garrett today. But, I don't know. I understand also that, once you do pass 30, he's going to be 31 at the end of this year. You do have to take a calculated guess. And I think a lot of stats suggest that at that position after 30, there is a drop off. So you should never, and this is an argument that some of the journalists make. You should never pay for what someone has done. You should always pay for what they are about to do, if that makes sense. So you have to try and calculate and guess and guesstimate, I guess, what their production might be. That's really difficult because they've not done a good job. This is the problem. If they let Trey Hendrickson go, which is likely, a lot of people, I think, out there would be like, yeah, okay, we trust you guys because of the record that you've had in the past. You've always kept homegrown players and you've always signed our best. You've been quite proactive, quite urgent and agile, and you're not bound to a particular structure of contract. We get that. We like that about you. We're willing to trust you guys. Trouble is, no one trusts the Bengals front office because of what's happened in the past. They are bound to an absolutely antiquated, in my opinion, kind of contract structure. They take far too long in negotiations. And you look, they should have tied T and Jamar up by now, quite. And Trey. If it was me, I probably would have signed Trey when he got his extension a year or so ago. It was just for a year. I would have given him a much healthier raise, and I would have given him 2 years. And I think that's one. He would have been 32. He would be 32 at the end of that little extension, and I would have said, "Thank you, good night. You've been brilliant." I mean, who's to say that? Who knows whether he's going to fall off a cliff, as some of the journalists think he might. because of his age. He certainly doesn't look like that at the moment. They might have egg on their faces yet again in a year or so's time. I go both ways on Trey Hendrickson, but I personally would have extended him for 2 years rather than one, and given him sort of 25 mil a year and structured it the way, you know. But yeah, it's just not great optics. You know, they might go out tomorrow and sign Jonathan Allen, right, and another couple of really decent free agents for the price of Trey Hendrickson. And as an entire unit, we might be better next year. As weird as that sounds, right? We might be. We might be a more complete unit, even though we're going to lose some serious sacks. And on the flip side, we've just got rid of our best defensive player. So right. It's a really difficult one to get. I can't make my mind up about it. I'm not quite as like, right, I'm just going to burn that entire city down mood at the moment. But I have to say, I don't think they played a blinder on in certain areas. I really don't. I think, as I say, they could be far more proactive. What is this thing about not negotiating contracts during season? They need to start doing that to avoid this situation right now. Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, are they quibbling over this just a few million, like $5 to $10 million? And the structure, is that what they're quibbling over? The structure of a deal, the kind of guaranteed money, is that their big problem here? I don't know. But as I say, it almost feels like, I don't know what it feels like. They basically got their structures and they've got their approaches, and they're just not. They are stubborn and they're conservative, and I think it's also when you see Harry Roseman from the Eagles, who will, you know, kind of wheel and deal, and add players in season, make blockbusting trades, not for the sake of it, but to make his team better. We don't do that, and I just wish we would be more flexible, more open to wheeling, dealing, playing the game, because they've left themselves with a heck of a job to do. And then if you add in, and when I'm talking about rebuilding a defense here, and then also you add in trying to negotiate a deal with T and Chase that seemingly should be, you know what an own goal is, right?
Yeah.
So they seem to be just, well, no, it's an open goal rather. So the net is right there in front of him. They've gone past the goalkeeper. There's no one there. They're 5 yards away from the net, and all they've got to do is kick the ball, smash the ball into the net. And they look as though they're just kind of like, oh no, stop. We're just going to wait here for a second and just consider where we are. Maybe we can claw and scratch some dollars back. Maybe and then suddenly the goalkeeper's come back and he missed an open goal, right? So that's my fear, that they're going to miss some open goals because they have a very strict way of doing things that they seemingly don't enjoy deviating from or can't deviate from for whatever reason.
Yeah, agreed. And it's these are just so many unforced errors. The fact that T should have been signed 2 years ago. You shouldn't have had to place one franchise tag on him. Jamar should have been paid last year, and he would have been signed for $33 million a year. Now it's looking up towards 41, in the low 40s per year. And again, not my money. I don't care. Pay the guy whatever he's worth. But these are just 31 teams in the NFL would have had these guys signed and under contract, before this season. So your defense is terrible. And I'll kind of roll this into my take on Trey. The defense was awful with Trey Hendrickson last year. It's going to be awful without him. If I was confident that the Bengals front office were competent, I would be all aboard. Yeah, trade him. There's $16 more million that you have to play with. They can sign Jonathan Allen right now because he was waived. He's not even doesn't have to wait until Monday's tampering thing. Like, he's out there and he's a really good interior pass rusher. you can make the team up in aggregate by bringing in pieces. Trey Hendrickson is not a good run stopper. He's pretty much, by the end of whatever his next deal is, he's going to be a pass rush specialist. He's going to be in there on third downs and any other obvious passing situation, and he's going to be off the field. So I understand the hesitance to pay someone that much. And yeah, there's like pretty much every stat you can bring up there for guys hitting 30. Their production almost universally falls off a cliff. But if you had T and Jamar Dunn, you could take that chance on Trey because you had more money. They would have cost a lot less. I mean, you'd probably save $10 million on Trey or on T. Too many T's and confusing. It's like yesterday at the card show, Jamar Chase and Chase Brown were both there, and I call him Chase Jamar. Like, just can we just have totally unique names? It's confusing. I'm getting old and my mind spaces on me. If they would have signed these guys beforehand, then yeah, they'd be able to. They could go up to 33, whatever that Trey Hendrickson wants, and take that risk. With the team being risk adverse, I think that's why they're going to trade him. But I'm just not confident that if they get a draft pick back, I'm not confident that they're going to make a good pick with it. I'd almost rather them trade him with the I think the Raiders are interested. Trade him with the Raiders for Michael Mayer, and you get your tight end one right there. So and then maybe a lesser pick later, so you're not going to blow a premium pick. It's just it's simple, and I understand front off negotiations are never cut and dry. But if 95% of Bengal fans understand this and understand how contracts are structured, but the front office, they want to win every single negotiation. It's not about winning the negotiation. Everyone in the family is a lawyer. This isn't a courtroom. You want to make something that both sides walk away feeling confident about. That's the reason why they don't make trades. They want to win every single trade, and they ask for the moon, and a deal never comes through. With negotiating with their own guys, they want to have these guys wrapped up as long as possible at the at a minimum cost, so that it mitigates the amount of risk. And it's just, you owe the city, the organization owes the city and the fan base. They literally the team has never had to invest a lot of their own capital outside of the investment of putting the franchise in Cincinnati in 1968. They've been built 2 stadiums. They get $550 million a year back from the NFL just for existing through TV deals and everything. It's well past time that the organization does everything in its possible, everything in its power possible to win a title. Not just we want to compete or we want to make no. Blow the salary. No one cares about the salary cap. The salary cap is pretend anyway because the way that you can move money around, and it's just. They are this close to basically ruining all the goodwill that they earned in the 2021-2022 seasons with the Super Bowl and the AFC Championship, because it's reminding people it's still the Brown family. Mike Brown is still ahead, and Katie and Troy Blackburn really don't fall too far from Mike when it comes to negotiations and how they operate.
Yeah, I mean, I think they do care. I really do think they care. I think they want to win. I don't know why they haven't, like you said, they have to try and win, or at least this is what it appears to be from the outside looking in, right? They seem to want to, as I say, claw and scratch and not be taken. It's like this kind of weird, I don't know. But they don't. They're completely out of step with the rest of the NFL. Let's put it that way. Even though I do think that there are really good people who work for the Bengals. The Brown family are nice people. They're really good, sure. Nice people. I don't know them personally. I know Elizabeth a little bit, but I don't know them personally. But everything that you hear from people, they're great people, I don't know. I just think they've got this really old school conservative with a small c mentality where they're just stubborn as well. They're, like you said, they're lawyers and they don't back down. They have their way of doing things, and equally their evaluations, which seem to be all over the place all the time. And then they kind of claw and scratch, as I keep saying. It's like you say, it does seem to me and to a lot of us out there that they really try to win They go in like lowballing everyone with really derisory, offensive offers, which puts things at in a precarious situation straight away. An adversarial position straight away. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. It's infuriating, but also I try and temper it with the fact that we don't know everything that's going on around. The only thing that we hear about often are lines fed to journalists or to players or whatever from agents who want to create narratives to get their players more money, etc. But that kind of thing keeps being said. So listen, I'm frustrated like everyone. Like you say, they should have. It's a case of if you snooze, you lose, really. And we should have signed T and Jamar. Certainly T the first year when he was eligible. This last year for Jamar. Trey, I can go back and forth on. As I say, I'm not going to be too hard on the Bengals on that one, but they could have done a couple of years ago. And again, they would have saved, would have been a lot less money as well. So for my money, they need to be more urgent. They need to show more urgency. They need to have better communication with the players. From what you hear, that they're not great at communication. I would like to hear more from the front office during the season about where the club is, what their plans are. I think that would help with some of the negative press that they get. They sort of back themselves into a corner sometimes, and so they don't do a lot of things right. But equally, sometimes they get a proper kicking when they don't necessarily deserve it, I think.
Oh yeah, media immediately jumps to same old Bengals anytime anything goes wrong. That happens to all 32 teams, but if it happened to the Bengals, like, oh, it's the Bengals.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to be interested to see, because if Trey does get traded, and it's very likely, let's face it, they'll have a big chunk of money, and there is the possibility of signing some decent players to take his place, to construct a more well-rounded defense that doesn't rely on one guy, but just as a better unit. So I'm kind of excited to see that, but also Trey is at the top of his game. So it still does feel a bit counterintuitive to kind of show him the door. Do you know what I mean? So, we'll see what happens this first week. I wonder if the Bengals will. Do you remember a couple of years ago when they signed Karras and Kappa within about 2 minutes of the tampering?
By 12:01, they had both signed to a deal.
Now there's me saying that they need to show more urgency. Now that's an example where they showed probably as much urgency as I've ever seen them show. So who knows? There might be some signings tomorrow straight off the gate. They might have identified some people and got on the phones early doors and kind of just said, like, right, you're coming here. This is what we're going to, you know what I mean? So again, let's just see how this shakes out. It might not all be doom and gloom. There is still, a great chance that T and Jamal will be sorted out within the week. So, again, going back to, we were talking about fish and chips earlier, off air, and fish and chips over here used to be wrapped in newspaper, so it's kind of old chip paper. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like the news cycle really spins quite quickly these days. So I wonder, with all this angst, and a lot of it performative angst and gnashing of teeth and wailing, I wonder what that will be. A lot of people will have calmed down if we'll have, signed Jamar T and Jonathan Allen, or, I see Zadarius Smith has just been released by Detroit, or the other dude, the defensive tackle from Detroit that everyone's quite hot on a free agent. On
Rizaric, or on Levi O.
Levi O, so, if we come suddenly next week looking at, like, say, 2 new defensive tackles and a T and a Jamar, well, how are you going to? It's like, okay. Do you know what I mean? It's difficult. As I say, I'm just too old to play this game of, like, it's exhausting, man. Just shouting at the top of your voice on Twitter, and anyway, whatever. That's fine. But if it towards the end of the season they still haven't signed T and Jamar for whatever reason, then I absolutely think they deserve all the criticism that they will get and should get, frankly.
Yeah, there's a lot of people walking on pins and needles right now. I do actually expect them to come out and have a couple signings by, we'll say by 2:00 tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah.
I'm wholly expecting them to have a couple guys on, we'll say, an edge and defensive tackle. I think they're going to be as aggressive as they were a couple years ago because it's clear where their holes are. They're incompetent, but they're not. They're not incompetent, but they're slow. So they know what they want to do, and I think they're going to move on it fast. But I just wish they would take care of their own first and quicker. But I've been on this earth for almost 45 years, so I know how they operate.
Yeah, I know exactly, and that's again, the very fact that you're 45 and I'm going to be in a couple of weeks' time, March 29th, by the way, listeners, you feel free to get me a gift. But it's the fact that we have to say that to qualify it, and we've only ever known one way that the Bengals have done business. I think that's pretty poor, actually. It shows you that they haven't moved with the times. They haven't adjusted. Now, they have done a little bit with quarterbacks. We spoke to an agent on our show who actually debunked that and said, actually, they have been showing movement in negotiations, but it's kind of quite subtle. It's not a wholesale about turn, kind of a wholesale change in direction that a lot of us would like to see, or in fact, could see quite explicitly, so maybe that is the case. But Duke's been there for 20 years. Katie and Troy been there for 20 years. The two hopes I have to say is the next generation of Blackburns, and that's Elizabeth and Caroline. Yeah. They have already done terrific work, and one day this club is going to be theirs. And I've said it on our podcast before. I honestly think that Elizabeth is not going to stand for mediocrity because she is a marketeer, and she knows the value of brand and brand kind of. At the moment, the Bengals are a bit of a toxic brand because of their seeming, inability to get contracts done, and people kind of going nuts on Twitter, and Stephen A. Smith going nuts on ESPN, and all those knobheads over there. But I do think she understands the value of a positive brand. What's the word I'm looking for? A brand association. Yeah. And she understands that Burrow is like gold dust. And if you piss off Burrow, and if you don't surround him with enough talent to kind of win, she saw what the effect was on the city and the fan base and the club, and actually, frankly, the finances of that Super Bowl run. I'm absolutely staggered to think that she will stand for any sort of mediocrity. So I think going forward, I think I think she is a very positive addition to the staff in Cincinnati, and I do think that, and the hope is that she won't stand for any of this titting about.
And that's, I agree with you, but that's kind of all we have to hope for, because they're never going to sell the team. It's always going to be the ownership is only going to be always going to be held 100% within the family. So it's, well, now we're going to the fourth generation. Paul Brown had his successes, and then he passed away. Mike Brown, had nothing. Let's be honest. By all accounts, a very lovely man, a very charitable. The amount of charitable contributions that he and his wife had, the dude that no one hears about. It's great for the community, but in terms of on the field, and he's technically the GM, technically still the buck stops here guy, but most everyone knows it's Katie and Troy are the ones behind the scenes who do the negotiations and handle the day-to-day stuff. It's just, I'm not a fan of nepotism. and that's just, it's where we are as, just as fan of the Bengals, is like, we're just waiting for the next generation. What's going to,
But they brought in Duke, and they brought in the Tobin family to kind of, Bill and Duke to kind of help out, and they've been there for 20 years. I mean, maybe there is. I mean, maybe this is a conversation at the pub, but I maybe think that the organisation needs some fresh thinking. They've got a really innovative, content team and marketing team. They're brilliant. They're really great. Engagement team is much better. They're being sort of dragged kicking and screaming into the 21st century a little bit. It feels much more. You walk around the stadium now. I actually really like the stadium. I think it's really great. It's not like the bells and whistles of a SoFi or the Atlanta Stadium or whatever, but it's a really, it compares. If you go to a lot of Premiership teams and Premiership grounds, it compares really favourably with a lot of Premiership grounds. So I feel like Emily and the PR team do a great job. It's a very small team, but they do a great job. So there's lots of really good people in the building. I kind of quite staggered by those marks for the kitchen and the cafeteria. Every time I walk past it, it's like, this is great. You know what I mean? I'm not quite sure. Anyway, whatever. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe it is time, certainly at the front office level, to bring in some new, innovative, people and thinking, and they've done so much to modernize that club, and I think the only thing that's left to modernize, well, apart from aesthetic and cosmetic things like family rooms and cafeterias and things like that, is and also the meeting room. I was a little bit embarrassed at Hard Knocks when all the other teams had these sort of flashy meeting rooms with kind of, and we just had like an old school high school projector and some seats from like office seats from IKEA. Do you know what I mean? So I think that there's plenty to improve on, but maybe in terms of scouting and the personnel side of things and maybe there is room for some new fresh thinking to kind of to work with what they've got. I don't know. I think again, that's not to kind of disrespect anyone, but maybe that is. I don't know, because that's all we've kind of known, isn't it? Duke and the Blackburns. But there you go. You know what the Bengals are like.
Exactly. All of the hand wringing and pearl clutching. It's not going to change. It's kind of, this is who they are, and we'll you just hope that they that they do start to move a little bit faster. But I am excited for free agency to start tomorrow, because again, I know that they're going to bring in guys that they're going to be more active again. They've been more active the last 5 years than I think they have in the past, the previous 30 years. So it's it would be a lot better for the fan base if the current guys that they have would be handled and taken care of, whether it's trading them or signing them. So
I think you're right. It is a super exciting time of the year. We're going to be getting some new players pretty soon, and that's always really exciting to me. Finding out about the players, finding out who, where they play, how they play, where they come from. Free agency were a lot more. I mean, goodness me, can you imagine like 5, 6 years ago, just before Zach Taylor, free agency just wasn't. It was like tumbleweeds for free agency for Bengals. And now look at us. We really do kind of get stuck in, for better for worse, and then the draft's coming up. So yeah, I mean, if you want to just flip things and end on a positive with the Bengals, there's some really fun things about to happen in terms of, we will get some new players next week. We will get some players, a whole bunch of new players at the end of April. So that's fun, I think.
It's fun, because this is when the hope and irrationality and everyone, even fans of the Browns can talk themselves into being like the Brown franchise, not the Brown family, can talk themselves into being a contender. So I'm ready for it. I'm tired of the.
We're only a couple of months out from training camp where an undrafted wide receiver will catch a ball that pretty much 90% of all wide receivers should be catching down the sideline, and people will be proclaiming that they are like a future pro, so there's that to look forward to. But yeah, it's sport. There's lots more serious things going on in the world at the moment. So, but
it's supposed to be fun.
Like all of us, I feel it too. I'm frustrated. I just try to temper it with a little bit of nuance and okay, just chill, just take a breath. Don't tweet that. Don't tweet that. Just take a breath and, let's go and watch something on telly and we're all good. See what happens tomorrow.
At the end of the day, we have Joe Burrow as our quarterback. So,
yeah, and he is genuinely fantastic. And I have to say, Chase as well. I did, because I don't follow college football that much. So, and there were, if you remember the whole kind of, it was Chase versus Penny Sewell, wasn't it? And there were kind of quite a few guys over here in our kind of fan group who were pro Penny Sewell, quite a few guys pro Chase, and again, I could see both sides. I am a fence sitter, I'm afraid. But yeah, I'd been staggered how good Jamar Chase is after having seen the likes of Eddie Brown, Kyle Pickens, Darnay Scott, AJ Green, Chad Johnson, TJ Hushmanzada, all these guys. And then this guy is better than all of them.
Absolutely.
So the fact that we've got Burrow and Chase, and when we got to the Super Bowl, a lot of people were messaging me personally. I don't know why, privately, saying, "I don't know how to feel. What should I do? I don't know what is happening here." And I just thought, because apparently, I am Gandalf and I am keeper of all knowledge about things. I just said, Nate, don't even question it. Just enjoy it. Because I tell you what, this ain't going to happen this might not happen for a long time after this, So just enjoy it for all the weirdness and, excuse me, and surreally mind-bogglingness of this situation. Just enjoy it. And then, go back and question how we got here and what do we do to get here. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah.
So, bringing up Gandalf, that kind of helps me pivot here. You write for, actually, that is your baby, Killing Times, which is writing about TV primarily, or your crime dramas, correct, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay. What have you always been into journalism, or is this something that was just a side thing that you started and just became?
No, it's my job. Joe.
Okay.
I've been a journalist for 30 years this year, which is showing my age a little bit. But I don't know. First job as a staff writer in '95 in London's Camden Town, and it was writing for some sort of home electronics magazine. So we used to kind of talk about VCRs and DVD players and flat screen. Well, they weren't flat screen back then. They were kind of massive. Tellies that don't exist anymore, TVs that don't exist anymore, and equipment, but also kind of the kind of stuff that you used to watch them as well. So because I wasn't that technical, they used to put me on the stuff that wasn't technical, which means we was talking about films and TV and things like that. So yeah, I got kind of I followed that path really, and then just kind of for the longest time wrote about TV and entertainment for kind of some of the national magazines and newspapers over here, reviews and previews and interviews with talent and all the rest of it. So yeah, I mean, not rocket science, not a proper job really, to be honest with you, but certainly fantastic. And went on press trips when TV companies had a marketing and PR budget to take journalists to set visits and fancy press trips abroad. Went on some really great ones. So yeah, but then about 10 years ago, I was told that I needed to have an online presence which obviously today could mean like OnlyFans or something. But thankfully, viewers, I'm not on OnlyFans. So
I'm not here to judge. Do it, whatever pays the bills.
You're spared that visual monstrosity. But yeah. So I thought, what do I? And just before that, I was starting to get into crime. I've always kind of quite liked crime fiction, like detective novels and mystery novels and things like that. And there's a couple of festivals over here, like literary festivals that kind of specialize in crime fiction. And I just started to go to them, and it was brilliant. They were brilliant, and they still are. You'd be in the bar of a hotel where one of these conventions or festivals, as we call them over here, are on, and like the authors would be in the bar, and like we're talking like proper top level authors like Ian Rankin and let me think, Gillian Flynn who wrote Gillian Flynn who wrote Gone Girl, big pardon. The first year she appeared at this particular festival in Harrogate in Yorkshire, I spent like an afternoon with her and her husband in the bar just talking. It's like, hold on a minute, that's Gillian Flynn. She's really nice, and Brad, her husband's really nice as well. Wow. And then there's like, so it was a bit, and Harlan Coben, and they're all in the bar chatting, and they love talking to their readers because it's the only time that they get out of their little writing room and to kind of get proper feedback for their work, as long as you're not a dick, obviously, and just go. So I got into that, and then I thought, someone said you should do something, and I was like, well, what can I do? And then I sort of figured out, well, I like crime fiction, and I work in TV, like journalistically, that is, not making telly, but why don't I try and combine the two and do a kind of TV? There's no one out there that does anything specifically on crime drama. So I came up with the Killing Times, which is a kind of spin on the Radio Times, which is a very historic TV listings magazine over here. So it's the Killing Times, and 10 years later, I still do. I don't make a penny from it. I probably shouldn't be doing it because it takes up too much of my time. But I'm still doing it because, like, I had a holiday last year, and people started tweeting me and messaging me, going, "Where is it? I'm really miss it. Where is it? Where is it?" It's like, yeah, all right, I'm allowed a holiday, and I'm allowed a bit of a vacation now and again. So yeah, it's been really fun. It does get me into kind of places. Has allowed me to interview some really great talent that I really respect and admire, like actors and actresses and things like that. So that's really cool. So for that reason alone, I'll keep it going. And there's obviously kind of a never-ending stream of crime drama on the TV these days. So there's no shortage of stuff to write about. I wish I could. I've got a couple of writers who do it for nothing. So I need to put a shout out. Really, I could do with a couple more writers who will do it for nothing. But yeah, it's fun. It's fun.
So let me ask you, what are your favorite shows? What they could be British, American, wherever. I guess we'll stick specifically in crime drama, since that's what you write about. Just name just a handful of shows that that are your favorite of the genre.
Well, I grew up as a kid like with the Rockford Files, and Starsky and Hutch was still being on reruns quite regularly over here in the UK. So I used to be like thrilled as a kid watching those things. You know what I mean? And Columbo was always a good solid watch. Kojak even was getting reruns over here in the 80s. Murder, She Wrote, all that kind of stuff. It was never off your screens really. But I think that there were two shows that really kind of blew. I mean, that phrase, "Oh, it blew my mind, man," and it's a bit overused, I think. But these shows genuinely changed the way I thought and looked about the world. And they were The Singing Detective, which came out in the mid-80s on the BBC, and was remade into a movie starring Robert Downey Jr., I believe. I don't know how long, like 10, 15 years ago, maybe. It was very surreal, very creepy. If you asked me to explain it now, I still couldn't. And the fact that it was on primetime TV, over here in the mid-'80s is just how did that happen? Do you know what I mean? It was like prime time Sunday night prestige drama. And it was because it was made and written by this guy called Dennis Potter, who was a real visionary writer. And, so there was that. And then it was, I mean, it's quite apt, really. I was really upset when David Lynch died a while back. I really loved his work, and I loved him as well. I thought he was terrific, a terrific character. Twin Peaks, it was Twin Peaks to me, just the murder mystery element of it, the surrealism that obviously, and the grotesque stuff that you get from Lynch, the kind of melodramatic, soapy stuff, the kind of folksy 1950s stuff going on in there. I just loved every second of that.
Very genre bending. I was too young to watch it when it came out. I mean, I think it came out in 1989, and I was 9. There's no way a 9-year-old should be watching the original Twin Peaks. But we watched it just a few years before The Return came out, and it's fantastic. And when you think of how TV was in America in terms of standards and content, for that matter, it was so much advanced beyond anything that we had on TV over there or over here at the time. And just what a interesting, like, besides the filmmaking itself, the camera work and all the cinematography are beautiful, but just the story and how the actual mystery in and of itself, and they ABC ruined it by forcing him to resolve the mystery in the middle of in the middle of the season.
Yeah, that was weird.
But yeah, that one of those, like, wow, the murder isn't even important. Like, at that point, solving the murder isn't the important aspect. Why are you like that? That's just kind of the overarching storyline that kind of pulls everyone together and kind of pulling at threads, and you do that and everything kind of falls apart. And that's what happened, how the show got canceled, so quickly. But what were your thoughts on The Return?
It was really hard work, but at the end of it, I thought, wow, that was incredible. And I can't explain why that was incredible or what was going on. Or, I think there was that episode 8 where it was the nuclear explosion one. Spoiler alert. I think that was just like the most remarkable hour of television I've ever seen in my life. So, I've got a lot of love for Twin Peaks, really, and for Lynch, just not just for Twin Peaks, but his film work as well. And just his outlook on life, really, is a bit strange. I like quirky things. And so that was good. And there was a period about 10 years ago when we've got this kind of non-mainstream channels, the BBC channels, BBC 4, right? So it shows mostly arty, like documentaries about stuff, art, whatever, bit niche, and then they started putting these like foreign language dramas on Saturday night, and they were crime dramas, and they were from Scandinavia. So we had The Killing, which was remade actually for the American audience. It was AMC like 5 years later. The Killing, which was like just an incredibly involving, heavy, engrossing, compelling crime drama, but from Denmark. So it felt different and, fresh and, just a different way to approach things. And then a couple of years later, there was something called The Bridge, which was kind of a Swedish, Danish kind of split. Suddenly, this whole new genre sprang up called Nordic Noir. And we started getting series from Iceland, more stuff from Sweden and Denmark, and Finland came into the mix, and that was a real thing. It got to be really like, on a cult level. Like, what are you doing Saturday night? Yeah, I'm staying in to watch The Killing, or The Bridge, or whatever. And people started dressing in the same ways. There was kind of, public appearances over here. It became a real thing, so that was a real That was really good. And then of course you got like the golden age stuff. Like, I still think The Wire is just about the best drama made in any genre. I think, even though it's set in Baltimore, we'll forgive them for that.
There's a lot of crime, so we'll allow it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so that was an extraordinary series, 5 series, just incredible work. The Sopranos, obviously, I think it still counts as a crime drama because those guys were committing crimes on a daily basis, and that was an extraordinary. Because I think it's not just about the crimes, right? This is the whole thing that I think this is what for me marks out a really good crime drama. It's not about the puzzle of or the whodunit bit, because everyone kind of enjoys that if you watch an Agatha Christie adaptation or a regular whodunit where it's just like the fun of that is you guess who done it, right? Who did it?
Right.
Who killed that person? And you look at those Daniel Craig, what they called the glass. Is it called the glass?
Knives Out.
Knives Out.
I love those. Those are fun.
They're just classic locked room, what we call locked room mysteries, right? Who done it? Who did it? That's all that kind of. But these dramas kind of tended to weave in socio-political issues and socio-economic issues as well. What causes the crime? Who are the people that are perpetrating the crime? What does the crime effect have on the victims' families? And it goes on and on and on. That's what I think makes a really brilliant crime drama, when you weave in all these kind of this like really authentic real life stuff. But things like Knives Out and The Glass Onion and any Agatha Christie adaptation is just fun precisely because of there's none of that. It's just something that you can turn off on and it will engage you and you can have fun with it and you can guess who the killer was. Never has killing been more fun, I don't think.
It's very self-contained too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So one thing when we had talked about like what topics to talk about, you talked about movie franchises turning into TV property, and there's Lord of the Rings. I guess they're talking about James Bond doing a show, which would be interesting. One that I thought, and I'm a huge fan of the Godfather movies.
Ooh,
I have, and this. So this is my thought, and and someone's gonna come up with this and make $1 million. Actually, I don't think anyone has the balls to take on the Godfather, but pick up in between the flashbacks from Godfather 2. So after you see the flashbacks, how Vito and Saltesio and they start Genco olive oil, Genco Pura, and pick up everyone's storyline. You can see how Tessio builds his builds his empire in Brooklyn, and just kind of bridging the gap between the first and the second movies. And again, I don't think anybody has the balls to do that. But I think that would make an incredible story because you have 30 some odd years to fill, and it's not like you have to fill every single day of what's going on.
You shouldn't have said that on this podcast, Joe. Honestly, that is a incredible idea. I have to say, incredible. I mean, holy fuck. I mean, that is incredible. That would work so well, and there would be such an audience there. I think, like we say, there's going to be a Bond one, which I think a lot of people over here, especially in the UK, are very nervous about, because streaming is a different beast to movies. Streaming are kind of, you have to fill a space. And I mean, the Lord of the Rings series actually, despite a lot of people's misgivings, improved in series 2, and it was actually pretty good. But was there any need for that series? No, because like what you look at, what was that based on? It wasn't really. It was a bunch of appendices at the end of the Tolkien books. It wasn't like stories within the books or whatever. It was the appendices, because that's all they could get the rights for. So it's kind of Tolkien adjacent, but as long as you understand that in your brain, it's actually quite watchable and good, I would say. Star Wars. I'm a huge Star Wars fan, and since we're going back to since I was a kid, Empire Strikes Back was one of the first movies I ever watched in a cinema. Blew kind of 7-8-year-old me completely out of the water. And so, but what Disney are doing to it is kind of quite interesting, and some of it is not necessarily successful. And it's almost like, oh, listen, we need to kind of because streaming tends to fill in the gaps where you don't need to question it in the movies. You're just there in the moment, and you're being told these are the characters and this is the story. But then I guess we had novels before streaming. Streaming services are the novels of yesteryear, if that makes sense. They are filling in gaps of story stuff and whatnot. And sometimes gaps don't need to be filled in. You don't need to explain stuff. You just need to let it be and let the audience kind of go with it, because that is science fiction and it's fantasy and it's all the rest of it. However, the Godfather one is a very good idea. Yeah, I think the Godfather stuff is a really great idea, genuinely, and because like every other streamer seems to be, there's nothing new under the sun, so people need. I mean, streamers will tell you that existing IP is the most popular because there's an audience for it there already. They don't need to. They don't necessarily. It's easier to kind of make a series on the Godfather or Star Wars or whatever it might be, because the framework is there already, really. But genuinely, there would be a really good story to tell for the Godfather. I think really good.
And like I was trying to I look at it as with kind of a jaundiced eye. I'm not a huge fan of this. Like I've seen the 9 Star Wars chapters. I've seen Solo. I haven't watched any of the other movies. It's not my genre. It's
Sure.
the first ones were decent, but were well done movies, but it just it didn't interest me. So I look at it as they're just milking property for money instead of
course.
trying to create like quality entertainment. And it's the same thing with all of the superhero movies, and it's just I'm not a fan of that. Now, granted, Godfather show would pretty much kind of be the same thing because you're taking known property and known characters, but you could also introduce all of the different aspects from the different the 5 families. I mean, the heads of the 5 families weren't the same in in the 1920s. I always thought that would make a fantastic story to tell, and you can have it contained. Going in, you have 30 episodes, so break that into 3 series or however. I always again, maybe I need to learn how to become a screenwriter and make my pitch for some production studio.
I do think there's a lot of mileage there. I mean, what do you watch on TV, Joe? What do you watch with your family? Do you find yourself? I find myself actually not watching a lot of kind of linear TV anymore. I will dip into kind of streaming services and actually watch and listen to a lot of podcasts on YouTube and all the rest of it. And I feel kind of bad about that because that's not what I used to do. I used to be like appointments of you. I used to be watching the TV with family or friends, and do you know what I mean? And now I'm not doing that, and I feel a bit bad about it. But actually, should I feel bad about it? Because that's just the way the world is going at the moment. It's a much more individualistic, personalized, kind of curated content thing. You know what I mean?
So I mean that's just the way it's going. And yeah, there's still even in America, there's still series that are on your regular ABC, NBC, Fox. I don't watch any of those. I haven't watched any of those in probably 10 years. If there's some series or if there's some show that's on regular TV, I'll catch up with it when it comes to streaming. Are you familiar with Severance on, or have
Yeah.
you watched Severance? Okay,
Watched the
that's
first season. I keep seeing loads of people talking about it on Twitter, so I tend to zone out and park it because I'm not seeing it yet. But it was a very interest, and that's why I think streaming services do have the upper hand over your regular terrestrial network channels, because they can kind of make really interesting, unusual, thought-provoking dramas that aren't tied to convention too much.
yeah.
Just so, yeah, I mean, are you a fan of the Severance there?
Yeah, it's funny talking about regular linear TV to where you sit down and there's an episode every week. My wife hates that. If they're like most shows, even on like Apple or Hulu or some other streaming services, they release them serially. They release them one episode at a time, and she won't watch them episodically. She has like we have to wait until the entire the entire season is finished so we can binge them so we don't have to wait for another week. That's the
Mm.
one show like she's not as huge of a fan of it as I am, so she just kind of watches kind of as she's reading a book. But
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's such an incredible, the storytelling, the cinematography. It's a very weird and eerie, even in series one or the first series. Um, it's hard to get a grip on it, but it's very eerie and unsettling. I don't
Mm.
know if that makes sense. Like there's no overarching menace. It's not as if there's this evil,
No, that's right.
monster as it were, like Stranger Things. Like there's
It's like a
the
faceless thing, isn't it? Really, it's like a
exactly,
faceless.
and it's just corporate, more or
Yeah,
less it's just
right.
a workplace drama, but it's just a eerie and creepy, unsettling feeling over the entire thing, and it's fantastically written. The acting is amazing. So
Mm.
that right now that's my favorite show that I've at least watched for the
Yeah,
last couple
and I
couple
actually
of
think
years.
Apple TV is actually, you could argue that Apple TV is one of the best streamers out there because of
I think
what
so.
they have, but they don't shout about it very much, really. And whereas Netflix obviously is this huge machine now, and I find Netflix a little bit too like, whoa, I don't know whoa, what am I looking at? I don't know. Their interface there is just like, whoa, I don't know where
It's
to go here.
overwhelming.
It's overwhelming. Whereas Apple's a little bit, Disney Plus, I watch it, I get it but again, it's like, how many streaming services can you afford to pay for? You've got Amazon, you've got Apple, you've got Netflix, you've got Disney Plus, you've got obviously over there, you've got Hulu. A lot of the
Yeah.
Hulu stuff comes over here onto Disney Plus. So
There's a bundle with Hulu and Disney Plus and
right,
ESPN for
right,
that matter. They're
right.
one package for all three streaming services.
So, and then you get like, the linear TV channels have started their own kind of streaming stuff.
Peacock and
So
Paramount
they
Plus.
release stuff early before, like Peacock for you probably. So it's just like, oh God, it's all fragmented and it's doing my head in, and I don't know what to think anymore. So yeah. I did
It's
go to the
hard.
cinema yesterday. I went to the actual cinema yesterday. So
Okay.
that was a fun thing.
I haven't. I think the last time I went was for a kids movie, and I can't even remember what it was. We have a theater less than 2 miles from my house. It's not a matter
Yeah.
of access to one. It's just I can. I have a really nice TV in the bedroom, and I can lay in bed in a nice, comfortable, pillow and blanket, and curl up and watch a good movie without having
Yeah.
to pay, whatever for the concessions and the tickets and everything. So I do miss the experience. So I do need to get back into
Yeah,
that.
but I think, don't you think though, we talked about COVID earlier, that people are, and just generally speaking, so individualistic now that their personal space is everything, and actually kind of getting into, I don't know, maybe that's a generalization, but I find maybe that's just me. I go to a cinema, I just get really annoyed by people, and I just don't like being in with loads of people. Um, but then sometimes I do. So what am I even talking about? I don't know. But yeah,
I,
I
I
think
get that.
I've
I think
heard a lot of people, I've spoken about this with a few friends, and a lot of them kind of say, yeah, I hate going out to like music shows or theatre or whatever, because this idea of personal space has become, the balance has gone the other way a little bit, and it needs to be dragged back, I think. And I'm okay with gigs and theatre and things like that, but yeah, cinema is really interesting because you get a bunch of really annoying people who eat really loudly or just talk, so I think the cinema, actually, it's just the cinema. It can be a really annoying experience, I think.
To me, the biggest part of the cinema, yeah, people talking. I mean, if you have loud talkers, that's the worst. But
Yeah,
it's everybody on their phone, and you just see the blue hue coming off of their screen out of the corner of your eye. Now,
yeah,
there's no better place to consume a movie from, than inside of a cinema because it's so immersive. You have
yeah,
like
100%.
you can get a really nice home setup or a nice sound bar and and have really fantastic sound. But having a screen that's literally the size of a house in front of you,
I know.
it's
It's
unmatched.
much more immersive. I mean,
Yeah.
yesterday the film that I watched was about a rock documentary, a rockumentary, I believe it's called,
Yeah. Okay.
um, about a punk band that existed in Washington D.C. I want to say from about '88 until the early 2000s, called Fugazi, and
Oh yeah. Okay.
just incredible, my favorite band of all time, actually. But anyway, um, and just seeing concert footage of those guys just rocking out on a big screen, it was just, like the hairs on the back of their neck were fully up, and you were almost ready to get up and have a bit of a jump around. You know what I mean? It was, if it wasn't for my knees, I probably would have done that. So um, yes, there is a lot to be said for seeing things on a big screen, I think,
Yeah.
with people as well, and just enjoying it with people as well.
I think with COVID, people became more comfortable. And my wife is an extreme introvert. She would never leave the house if it weren't for me. I'm a bit, but I like socializing. I'm very loud, and I like to talk and be the center of attention. If you haven't made noticed, um, but I think COVID made people who were more introverted to begin with, made them so much more comfortable with staying in the house or
Yeah.
just lingering in small groups. Um, I won't go to a concert anymore unless I have an actual seat. I will not do festival seating
Oh
where it's
well, okay.
everybody. I, I I can't handle like I'm claustrophobic to begin with, but the older I get now,
No, okay.
I feel like I need to start swinging elbows because since I'm a little bit on the taller side, my elbow is at a lot of people's
Right.
heads, and it would just be so nice. I'd get
So
arrested,
it's
which
saying
wouldn't be
this is
nice.
all an
But
age thing. This antipathy
yeah,
toward other people and general annoyance of other people. It's an
yeah,
age thing. It's not.
yeah,
It's not
for sure.
necessarily a cultural thing or a post-COVID thing. It's just an age thing, basically. I've become a curmudgeon and an angry middle-aged man. Is that what you're saying, Joe?
Pretty much. I mean, are you familiar with the Muppets?
I am. Yeah,
Okay,
love the
so
Muppets.
Stadler and Waldorf, the old guys up in the balcony.
Yeah, yeah,
Since
yeah.
I was in my 20s, those are my idols. That's who I want to be. That's actually the next tattoo that I get. I need to find a place to put Stadler and Waldorf somewhere.
Yeah, that'll be great. I want to
It's
see
life
that. That
goals.
will
Yeah. All right, Paul. We've been talking for for over an hour and a half, almost an hour and 45 here. I'm not sure anyone's gonna stick around this long. If they do, hey, I appreciate you. And I know my family doesn't even watch my show. Like just play the show in the background so I get a view and click a thumbs up.
Yeah,
That's all
just
I care about. So,
come on,
but
Joe's family, come on.
I really appreciate you coming on with me and sharing a lot of your time, especially it's getting later in the evening and your drink is probably getting pretty dry at this time by this time. So, um, again, you want to promote your promote Bengals UK and uh, the Killing Times. Anything you want to
Yeah,
promote?
okay. Well, if you're a Bengals fan and you want to come and say hello, please do. We are at Houday_UK on Twitter. I still call it Twitter. Bengals UK on Facebook. Bengals_UK on Instagram. And we're Bengals UK somewhere on Blue Sky as well. Killing Times is still a WordPress thing. I haven't upgraded yet. That's on the cards. But anyway, it is the Killing Times TV.wordpress.com. So not something that doesn't necessarily roll off the tongue as easily as it should do, but it's there. And if you're into crime drama, come and have a read, see what you think. There's a lot. To be honest, it's predominantly British shows, but we do, because of the cross-cultural transatlantic thing, we do review a hell of a lot of American shows and bring you news about when certain shows are coming out and what they're all about and all the rest of it. So yeah, come and say hello.
All right. Well, we will be back next week with another fantastic. Well, maybe next week. We'll see. I'm kind of struggling being able to get people hemmed down, but I do have David Fulcher coming up at some point. I have another former baseball player that I've got coming up in the short term. So I will leave you with this week's quote of the day, and this is pertinent for larger reasons. We'll put it that way. The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing, by Edmund Burke. So. Until next week, everybody, take care. We will see you soon.